What's up, y'all? Hope y'all doing good. I'm Anthony K. Thomas, and welcome to my social media book tour for my book, But It Was Worth It If Only It Were True. So, to tell you about this book and how I came up with this idea, for starters, it is a mock memoir. It's a story about it's a story about the character Tariq Harris II, who tells this story about his life while also pondering and pondering the idea of if life is worth it. It's a question that he asks his parents, his wife, and himself, and he also asks you, the reader, with everything you've gone through in your life, is it worth it? Is life worth it? Was it worth it? Um, so to tell you, that's what the story is about. But the idea of the story really goes back to my childhood. Well, not my childhood, my young adult years, like my 20s. And I have this really close friend of mine. His name is Emmanuel. And he, whenever we go out and hang out when we all hang out, and the fellas and I would all get out, go and drink or get a little high or whatever. There's an alter ego that would come out, and that would be Jerome. That's who they would. That's who my best friend, really close friend, my best friend Emmanuel would call me. He called me Jerome whenever I'd get, whenever the alcohol was doing its magic, or if the weed was doing its magic. Jerome would come out, and that would be my alter ego. And Jerome was really a lot more loose, a lot more fun guy to be around, versus how I was as a kid. Not as a kid, but as a young adult. And I was at that time in my early 20s, almost through my entire 20s, but like early 20s, I had gotten out of a bad relationship. My ex-fiance caught her cheating on me, and after that I was very, very tight and very guarded. So whenever I would hang out with Emmanuel and the rest of the fellas, when the alcohol was doing its magic and the weed was doing its magic, Jerome would come out, and he was a lot more loose, a lot more fun, a lot more easygoing than I was in my early 20s when I was sober. And thinking of, not too long ago, a couple years ago, thinking of that character, of that alter ego of me, Jerome, I started to wonder what would his life be like. Telling a story of his life, what would that sound like if he were to sit down and write an entire story about his life from beginning, from the time he was born to middle age, and what was his family like and all that stuff. And so I sat down and I started to write. But as I was writing, the name Jerome wasn't sticking as far as I was writing the story. And another name, Tariq, kept popping into my head every single time, and imagining and actually like picturing images of Tariq, of a camera on Tariq, as he's looking into the camera and saying, "Hi, my name is Tariq." He's like, "By the way, my name is Tariq." Kind of like I don't know for anyone who's seen this movie, but The Wood is a perfect example of that beginning sequence of Omar Epps in the beginning of that movie, who's talking to the crowd, who's talking to the audience, and he says, by the way, my name is, and then he says his name, and then he goes on. And then the story itself goes on, but it's like, there are moments where the voiceover of Omar Epps is like chimes in as he sets up a moment that's happening within the movie, which is a part of his life, basically. Not his actual life, but the character he's playing. And I saw that for Tariq doing that, but sitting down, writing this entire story about his life, while also throughout his life wondering if life is worth it. And it's like a question that doesn't really come to him until he gets to his father. And then that question sticks with him throughout the entire story of his life up to old age. where he's sitting down on the porch with his wife and his grandkids are playing, and he asks his wife, was life worth it? And this was after he asked his father this question, he asked his mother this question, and then he's an old man, he's sitting with his wife, and he asked if everything she's gone through in her life was worth it, and it's the same thing he eventually asks himself. And adding little moments from my actual life into this story, but like dialing that up like to like 100, and just going with it kind of. And it was freeing when I wrote this story, because I completely dived into my alter ego, giving him a name change from Jerome to Tariq, and I just allowed Tariq, to this alter ego of me, to tell this story of his life soberly, and asking these moments that have happened through his life, and how he met his wife, and how unexpected it was, and how it started out as a friendship, and reaching a point in his life, reaching a point where he falls in love with this woman that becomes his friend, but not saying anything, holding that in until because she eventually gets married and she has kids, but then the marriage doesn't go well, and so Tariq looks at that as an opportunity to, like, if I don't say anything now, then I'll regret it. And there's always some regret of him not saying anything. It's just like, it reached a point where he just can't hold it in anymore. So he says it, and then what happens following after he tells her happens. And it's scary, but it's good when you're able to let go of anything that you need to say, instead of holding that in, and let it out. And yeah, and he lets that out. And so much that happens in his life, it's really a combination of it's a story of life. You know, there's hard times, there's the good times, there's sadness, there's depression, there's heartache, there's love, there's questions. There's the big question that he asked, which is what the title is, but it was worth it. And it's asking yourself, was life worth it? And him telling not just the story of his life, but going even further back and telling the story of his mother's life, of his father's life, and telling these stories of how he became this black sheep to this family that looked at him differently because he is biracial. So there's race in this as well. And that's just that part in the story of representation, me being biracial and wanting to put that in. It's something that I do for every book that I put out. There's always some form of representation in every book that I put out with biracial characters, because as someone who is biracial and someone who grew up reading all different types of books, listening to all types of music and movies, the representation of someone being biracial was either little to none at all. So for me to have representation as far as biracial characters go, whether they're male or female, gay or straight, I felt that it was important for me to put that in there in every book that I do. So yes, biracial. So yes, Tariq Harris is a biracial character. Absolutely, and I do that with all my books. But anyway, so but it was worth it. That's how I came up with this idea of writing, but it was worth it. That's what But It Was Worth It is about. I hope you check this book out. I hope you go ahead and check it out on BarnesandNoble.com or on Amazon. There is a link in my bio, so you can go ahead and click on that Linktree link. That'll take you to my Linktree link page. There you'll find this book right here. You can either get it on BarnesandNoble.com or on Amazon. And before I go, I'm going to read a little something from this book. Now it's going to be at the very end. It's going to be at the last page of this book. But what I am reading in this last page does not spoil the book at all. There are always going to be people that will see you for how they want to see you. And there will always be things that you won't be able to control in your life. Focus on what you can control and don't let how people see you define who you are. It's your life. You define who you are. And when you reach that point in your life, when you slow down or stop and look back at all the good, the bad, the hard, and in between moments in your life, I hope you can say, but it was worth it. But it was worth it. Available now on BarnesandNoble.com and on Amazon. There is a Linktree link in my bio. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I am Anthony K. Thomas, and this has been my social media book tour for this book right here. But it was worth it if only it were true. And I will see you all on the next one. Peace, y'all.